Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Cassard and the buffs that they've given to this entire line. It's maybe not a stretch to say that this isn't the most popular line of destroyers in the game. French DDs that aren't particularly quick and are much more focused on their torpedoes than their main guns. Not that the main guns are bad, but this is definitely closer to the Torp boat line than the Kleber is. And they have been changing these torpedoes. So you actually get a reduction in your alpha damage here. But crucially, we got to remember, these torpedoes have variable damage at range. Your minimum damage value goes from 40% of your alpha damage up to 55%. So while we lose like 2,500 alpha off the top, at maximum range, we're gaining a little over 2,000 alpha damage as well. It's pretty nice for games like this one, where we get on a flank, very nice, but there's a lot of carrier spotting, so we can't actually get too close to these guys. Getting within 6-7 kilometers of a Libertad, Zao, GK, Thunderer sounds like a great idea when there's no radars around, but we gotta remember, plane spotting, we could get nuked out of the water instantly if we get caught too close. So that means my 7-kilometer window, where my torpedoes do their maximum damage of 22,233, is a little bit hard to achieve. But now that we have a minimum damage of 12,228 at 13.5 kilometers, you should notice this ship is a little easier to play at these mid-ranges. You should be getting a lot more damage out of these torpedoes, which, as a little refresher, are very, very good. They go quite quick, 72 knots base, which we can then buff up, and a 2-minute cooldown on them as well. You get 6 of them per side. It's really nice to be able to spin around a bunch and have almost always a Torp launcher pretty much ready to go here. I am running a full Torp build, by the way. This ship can definitely be run a hybrid build, might even be better run as a hybrid build, but since the changes to the Torps, we had to check out a full torpedo build, as we're going to get our first, at least visible, salvo of these torpedoes on the Thunderer. It's pretty far range, and we're still getting some insane alpha damage just out of those 3 torpedoes. Not that I've played this ship a ton recently, but it did feel like the Torps were hitting for a lot of damage, even at their maximum range. Losing a couple thousand alpha damage off the top at close range, I don't think is going to be that big of a deal here, since a few Torps at over 20k alpha damage already is going to be enough to one-shot a lot of ships. So this, to me, purely reads as a buff to this line, which is good, but it's not how I would have buffed the line. I think the variance in the torpedoes is what I would call fun variance, okay? High risk, high reward to get within 7 kilometers to maximize the alpha damage here, while still giving you decent torps at those longer ranges. Now, though, at its minimum, this alpha damage is actually better than Holland and the Pan-European DD lines, which is kind of interesting, I guess. The weakness of low alpha damage torps at maximum range is now better alpha damage than some of the torps at tier 10 here. And if I plug that into some DPM here, if we take the minimum damage, which again is only at 13.5 kilometers, it is a slow drop off after 7 kilometers. It's not like you lose your entire alpha damage after that 7-kilometer window. We still get like 73, 74k torp DPM, where something like Holland gets 64,000 torpedo DPM. So even at their worst, Cassard Torps are still going to give you much better outcomes than a Holland will. They're not quite as quick, sure, but they're still very fast out to this 13.5 kilometers, allowing us to play outside radar range. There are very nice, comfortable things about these torpedoes on Cassard. And that maximum DPM, if we're playing a really close range, is 133,000 Torp DPM on Cassard, by the way. This is a very strong Torp boat with actually decent guns as well. But this isn't exactly how I would have liked to see Cassard buffed. I do think the variance in the Torp damage is fun. I think that's interesting. I think that's cool to play around. I think the frustration here is going to be down to your speed. The variance in speed that we see on Cassard and its line, where it's incredibly slow to start with, and then you get a 30% engine boost to make up for that, I think is a little bit less fun to play around. So if it were me buffing Cassard, I actually would have left the Torps the way they are, because again, I think that's fun to play around, that insane alpha damage at close range, dropping off to even lower alpha damage than Holland Torps at maximum range. But this speed difference, going from 34 knots base, that feels pretty bad. We're among the slowest DDs at this tier. Assuming we have our engine boost up, it's not a huge deal. 90 seconds on a 30% engine boost is certainly very, very good. But that's all the consumables you really have. We don't have heals like Holland does. I've already brought that ship up. Nor do we have AA or defensive AA like Holland would have. You notice we took a nice 10k chunk just because the carrier walked over and clicked on my forehead. That's fun, right? Cassard is a bit of an awkward ship to play into carrier games, all right? You don't have that AA skill like Holland does to potentially deter the carrier, and you certainly don't have smokes like many other DDs would have to go dark and at least avoid a particularly problematic carrier squad, where certainly it would be those dive bombers. Would have loved to be unable to go dark there with a smoke or something like that. Unfortunately, Cassard does not have that, and assuming our engine boost is down, yeah, we are quite slow and not particularly maneuverable. Good alpha damage, though, enough to finish off this Thunder. I was getting a little too aggressive there. It's very lucky to survive that engagement, and we managed to get ourselves a very good game, in spite of having a carrier and a Hildebrand come over and spot us all the time. Because I played it safer, and the buff allowed me to get some really, really nice damage, even at maximum range. I don't think Cassard would have performed nearly as well in previous updates. So this is a legitimately good buff to this ship, allowing it to do more and be more effective at those mid and longer ranges. I just wish they would have changed the speed to be a little more comfortable all the time, and allow me to take that risk to play a little bit closer. And while we're looking at the Cassard today, this is a buff that translates all the way down through the line. So you should notice it's much more comfortable to play all the way down to tier 7. And they all got that nice buff from 40% to 55% of the alpha damage at maximum range, while also getting a small cut to their maximum damage at closer ranges. Overall, this definitely is going to be a buff. But Orage at tier 9 also got a small reload buff on its main guns from 4.3 seconds down to 4 seconds. I'm playing Cassard today because I wanted to see what the tier 10 was like. I think most people will grind through the tier 9 and mostly just play tier 10s. More excellent damage into that Kremlin, which has decent torp protection there. We still get over 35k alpha damage into him. Main pops up at pretty close range, and I'm expecting him to accelerate. I hadn't played Cassard much, so I was expecting to lead a lot more. Main also slows down, but these torpedoes get there in an absolute hurry. It's surprising how quickly we can get our torps out past our concealment range. It's like 30 seconds or so to 6.5 kilometers. That's actually not a lot of lead time, considering the alpha damage that these torps have. So the first set, it's going to sail right in front of that main because they get there that quickly. This is a solid torp boat still. You'll notice I'm playing pretty cautiously on this flank still, even though there's no carrier. Thankfully, we don't have to deal with that in this game. There's still going to be radars, right? You still have to play around that. Speaking of, there it is, the Gdansk on this flank, as well as potentially a Svea coming around. So we have to be careful, we have to be cautious. And this is why having 13.5 kilometers of range and now this buff to the minimum torp damage allows you to be so much better in the vast majority of games where you're often not going to get that close range max damage salvo of torps off on someone. It's pretty rare that we get that close gameplay at tier 10 these days, but we'll take it. First torp there doing over 17k. The second one, much less. I think that's got to be because of his torp protection. I don't think we hit the first one on his torp belt, so that's why it did so much more damage. These are certainly very good torpedoes. Another radar. This time I think it's Svea because Gdansk is so far away here, and that's why I'm playing so passively. But we're also getting some good spotting damage. Cassard is a bit of an odd ship in that it doesn't have any smokes, it doesn't have any D-fire, it only has the engine boost. You're pretty much forced to play open water or maybe farm over islands, but even then, our main gun's DPM is fine, but you know, it's less than Gearing HE DPM. We get 195k HE DPM, something like Gearing gets 216, right? Marceau with the same guns, although worse arcs, Cassard does have better arcs than Marceau, gets 253k HE DPM. So what do I do instead? Well, if I don't have to fight, why not just spot everything for my team, and that way they can do all the damage for me. This is a great way to deal with radar cruisers. We still have the torp range to actually use our torps against them, and maybe the Kremlin in the background, for example, and still hopefully keep these guys lit. Svea, though, does have excellent detection, so we have to get within his radar to actually keep him spotted, or close to within that radar. And this is where it can be a little tricky to play a DD, but I like being 0.1, 0.2 kilometers inside a radar cruiser's radar range. Point it away, kite it away, but this way I know if he's used his radar, and then there's a cooldown period. So that allows me to play more aggressively while I know that ship does not have their radar available to them. So we're just going to keep them lit. My teammates are going to do good damage. We're actually going to get a combat scout in this game, which means we did an absolute ton of spotting for our teammates, which is a good role to run as a Cassard since we don't have that smoke to farm from very easily. And while we could do some open water shenanigans, I want to showcase the Torps more and just the power overall of spotting. And you can see this Svea is in a bit of trouble. He does get behind the island though, very smart, and now likely will be popping his radar. So I should be careful here. I at least do have my engine boost up. We can't be playing quite this risky if we don't have our engine boost available to us, because that really is the entire maneuverability and potential dodging that this ship can do. Otherwise, we are just way too slow to actually avoid a lot of this incoming fire. Svea actually has 25 mil belt armor, and that means deck armor as well. That means we actually can't full pen with our main guns. So I actually have to hit superstructure on a small light cruiser there, which is why we actually don't quite finish him off. Cassard guns are fine. In fact, I do prefer this ship as a hybrid build. I find it functions a lot better in the vast majority of games, while still giving me a lot of torp power for those situations that call for it. But if you do want to run a full torp build, this is a very, very nice buff. Those of you who do play Cassard a lot and this line a lot, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you what you guys think of this buff. It's not a ship or a line that I play all that often, and I don't think this buff is necessarily going to change that. Like I said, I wish it was more consistent on the speed rather than the Torpedoes. I found the variants in the Torpedoes incredibly fun to play around with. I enjoyed how punishing it was to play so passively with these Torps and have them do almost no damage at that maximum range, while rewarding me with some of the best alpha damage Torps at closer range. I thought it allowed me to play like an F3 Shima role without being totally locked out in every match, because I only had 8 kilometer torp range like an F3 Shima does. I thought that was cool. I thought it was an interesting concept. And while this is a nice buff, I wish they had kept that variance on those torps a lot more and maybe made up for the lack of speed on this ship. It feels kind of bad to have such low speed on a ship like this one when your engine boost isn't available. Do have to mention that when the engine boost is up, we're not too bad. We're quite maneuverable. And don't you worry, there are plenty more balance changes to talk about. So very interested to see what some of these other ships that got some balance changes are going to look like in this update. Cassard, though, it is a buff. Don't get me wrong. It is a buff. I'm just wishing it was different parts of the ship. As for the build that I was running here, full torp focus with a bit of main guns with main battery A specialist here. I probably would try to get myself something like Fearless Brawler and main battery A specialist, maybe foregoing some torpedo reload for that, since the torp reload is relatively decent already, and that gives me a lot more flexibility to take gunfights with other destroyers, especially when my engine boost is up. Full torp build can certainly work quite well. You just need teammates that are going to shoot at those DDs that you spot. You still have decent DPM, but you certainly fall short compared to the best gunboats at your tier. And while your shell velocity is better than Marceau at mid and long ranges, it's still pretty slow. And so I wouldn't want to be taking a lot of gunfights at those maximum ranges. As soon as that engine boost runs out, though, we are very, very slow. One of the slowest DDs at tier 10. And that's pretty tough for a ship like this one that doesn't have smoke to go dark from plane spotting, anything like that. And because of that, you also have to be really careful around radars. That's why I played so passively around those radars and always wanted to make sure I had an engine boost available if needed, if I had to deal with a radar that I wasn't quite expecting, something like that. Cassard's not bad, though. It's still not the destroyer for me personally. I'm not as huge a fan of it. But again, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you're a Cassard enjoyer. But that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching and have a great rest of your day.